The spirit of Yom Kippur will begin by publicly apologizing. Yeah, Chatasia Visi Pashati, right? But I don't want you to think I was callous and uncaring about your time. It was no. There was a calculated risk that unfortunately did not pay off.
See, the timing was perfect.
Right.
I mean, timing of year was perfect.
Right. Yes. Right. So the spirit. If you want God to forgive you, forgive me. Hamavir al midaisav mavir lo kol pshav. Anyway, Yom Kippur has some very strange and deviant avodas that are, really rule breakers. Of course, we'll mention the positive one first. There's the positive one of entering the Kodesh HaKadoshim, something which is off limits all year round. Right? Now, it's a very interesting lashon of the pasuk that we have to look into. That the pasuk said, "Ayav b'cholis ala kodesh." Literally, the pasuk said you can never enter the Kodesh HaKadoshim, right? And then bezos yavo Aaron ala kodesh. And here's the order of how he could come in, which seemingly violates, the fact that ayav b'chol eis. It's seemingly a internal contradiction. The truth is, you would have never known that it's talking about Yom Kippur until, at the end of this Seder of Avodah, it says this happens only once a year. Yes, right? So it's seemingly in violation of Al Yav B'Choles. The Pasuk says never can you come to Kodesh Kodashim. Then Bezos Yavo Aaron Al Kodesh, but with this you could come in. But it says never. How do you reconcile with never? Right? But it's such an amazing phenomenon that a human being can enter the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And it also says another question that in the same along the same lines is that V'chol Adam lo yeh ba'ol moed. No person should be in Ol Moed when Aaron goes in. So the Yerushalmi already raises this question. In the spirit of the first question we raised, Aaron's a person. So so the whole going to Kodesh HaKadoshim is no human being, no, even with Aaron doing what he does, no human being should be Aaron's a human being, right? So that's one question to deal with. But what's stranger is the other avoda, which is also in Parashat Amos, the Seir LaAzazel, scapegoat down, which if not for the fact that the Torah prescribed to do it, would have been avodah zara mamish. Because you know what it is technically? It's a korban to the Satan. It's technically Satan worship. And what makes it mutter is the fact that God commanded to do it. Right? But if not for that fact, it would be mamish Satan worship. It is a korban. You are offering up that scapegoat to the Satan. It's a korban to the Satan. It's if not for the fact that the Torah commanded to do it, it would have been the lowest form of idolatry. Right? Right? Why does God want that? It's Satan worship. It's a korban to the Satan, technically. It's a mincha. That's right. So it's something which it's something that needs needs clarification, to say the least. That's the whole thing of drawing the lots. One seer la Hashem, the other seer la Azol. That's that question of drawing the lots. You can't just consecrate it. One to Hashem. It has to be through a girl.
Is a girl in of itself? Because we're in instances where we use girl.
Yes.
So the concept.
Why girl? Why can't you actively decide? You can't actively decide.
No, but
this one's La Hashem. You can't make a decision. I will consecrate this seir to go to God, and this seir you can't. It has to be al pi agoro.
No, I'm saying is the concept of a goro problematic to begin with.
Is a common. Depends how and when. You're right. Al pi dibur. We've had goro a few times. Not just here, but the Chalukah of Eretz Yisrael was al pi agoro.
Right. So I'm saying,
it's when God commands it. No, so you're asking when I decide to do it on my own for my personal affairs. Is that a problem of nichush or darkei amori?
Right.
Yes, it's a very interesting question. Yes, it's a very interesting question. It's beyond the scope of this class. But the Torah mandated gorel. You cannot actively make this seir l'Hashem, this seir l'Azazel. It has to be lots. That's that's a very interesting idea. So now this mincha le'esav that we read about in Parshas Vayishlach. So it's a very interesting Zohar in Parshas Emor. And we mentioned part of this Zohar in our pre-Rosh Hashanah shir, that the Rosh Hashanah is like it's happening again in Shemayim, the whole story with Yitzchak wanting to give the brachas, and Esav wants to get the brachas, and Yaakov beats him into it. That's the Kol HaShofar. We spoke about that at great length. So the Zohar, that same Zohar, goes on to say that Yaakov Avinu running away to Beis Lavan, that's the Aser Simei Tshuva. Right? When he comes and he meets Esav again in Parshas Vayishlach, that's Yom Kippur. And the mincha le'esav, he sent a lavish gift. Right. That's the seir la'azazel.
Wow. Again?
The mincha le'esav. He sent, it's how Parshas opens up. He sent off such many camels, he sent them like a lot of livestock. Yeah. All that mincha le'esav was a precursor for the seir la'azazel. The scapegoat that goes down the cliff. Yaakov Avinu sent the mincha le'esav with those kavanas.
What is seir? What did you say, seir?
La'azazel. That's the goat that goes down the cliff on Yom Kippur.
Oh, I see.
Yaakov, so Yaakov sent the mincha le'esav with the kavanas of seir la'azazel. It's an amazing thing. Right? That's what the Zohar said. So the that's Parshas Vayishlach is Yom Kippur. Parshas Vayishlach is Yom Kippur, and the seir the mincha le'esav is the seir la'azazel. Esav is Esav is himself called Seir.
Oh wow.
Seir.
That's right.
Right. So there's something going on here. Right. So now to crack this all open, there's a medrash right in Parshas Bereshis on the first day of creation. Right. So it says that there was choshech al pnei hatom. There was darkness over the depths. Zeh ma'asem shel rishayim. Right. God foresaw the deeds of the wicked. Then Yehi Or. Right? So those are the masim of the tzaddikim. Right? The deeds of the tzaddikim. And then V'alkim es or kitov. God says, I like the masim of the tzaddikim. I prefer that. Right? V'yavdo kim ben orachosh. He separated the two. Because how can I create the world if there's so much evil in it? So he created a partition that the good should not be adulterated or diluted by the evil, by keeping them separate, so the good reaches a critical mass, right? Which allows the world, merit to be created, because looking at all the good that's to come out of it. So by separating the evil from the good, the evil doesn't dilute the good, and the good is a certain critical mass of merit to warrant the creation of the world, right?
Isn't evil just a lack of good? Why here? The way you're describing it sounds like it's its own entity.
Well, we're going to talk about that.
And also, this happened before Chet Adam Harisha, when evil and wrong were mixed together. And here you're saying initially that's what it is.
This is all God foreseeing foreseeing before. Okay, so then. Vayikol Kim La'or Yom, God again declares the good dominant, right? Choshechon, he calls the evil darkness, nighttime, as in, because day is the ikar and night is secondary. As it were, God is now, waiting that even though there's going to be good and evil in creation, the good is called day. The evil is called night, i.e., the good is dominant. Right? Va'erev va'boker yom echad. And it was day and night was one day, right? All right, so that's right, correct. And that's the one day that there is for both Tzaddik and Rasha, Yom Kippur. The very first day of creation alludes to Yom Kippur, the light and the dark, Maaseh Tzaddikim, and it's called the one day that God gave for both Tzaddik and Rasha.
Maybe that's why we have Erev and then Yom. That's why the Jews count first Erev versus the Choshech, but then the dominant, the day, wins out in the end.
Yes. Right. So, but Yom Kippur is called day one, and then the Medrash adds another pshat over there. Medrash adds one more idea. Yom Echad again, as opposed to Yom Rishon. A different pshat. It doesn't say Yom Rishon, it says Yom Echad. For God was the one and only. in his world on that day. He was the one and only. So, of course, we have to say what the Medrash means. What do you mean, the one and only? There is all the basic elements of creation exist now. Like Chazal tell us, Es HaShamayim ve'es ha'aretz, as it were, all the raw material for everything heavenly and all the raw material of everything earthly was there already on the first day. Just God had to separate and refine. So, but still, it's called HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yochid Ba'olamo. So that's why Yom Echad, the day of oneness. Okay, so there's one thing that we haven't mentioned yet that we also do on Yom Kippur that we don't do year-round. Right, but this pertains to us. Before we were talking about the special temple services that are a bunch of rule breakers, like we said. But it's something that we do year-round. I mean, not as opposed to year-round, I meant to say. Right? We say the pasuk of Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed out loud. What's up with that? So that's one of the rule breakers of Yom Kippur that still apply Bizman Hazeh. What's up with that? Shema we say loud, Baruch Shem Kvod we whisper. And in Yom Kippur, for some reason, for whatever reason, we do that year round. On Yom Kippur, we don't do that. So what's the reason for that? So what's the basic reason that Shema Yisrael said out loud and Baruch Shem is said silent?
Well, the others, one said out loud and one said silent.
So there's a very interesting medrash. Nefesh HaChaim brings in Shar Gimel that a princess smelled the leftovers that was stuck to a pot in the kitchen, right? And what do? She you never know. She desired it. It was like the stuff that's stuck onto the pot, right? She just whatever. Right?
That's the best part. Exactly.
That's why we're in the kitchen the whole time.
Look, it's amazing. Medrash considered deviant behavior. All right, but whatever. Right. So Medrash considered deviant behavior. What's stuck onto the pot, the tzikei kedera, she smelled and she just had to have it. But it's disgusting. Tzikei kedera. Right? It's disgusting. It's a princess. It's a busha, right? It's a busha. But she wants it. Right? So the king says, give it to her b'chashai. Give it to her, but don't let anybody see. It's embarrassing, right? Don't let anyone see, right? So the Medrash says that's why we say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso, quietly, right? God wants to hear it, but it's embarrassing. What does that mean to say, right? Let's say the words. Blessed be the name of his glorious majesty forever. Now, glorious majesty is referring to creation, right? That's what it. Kol bashabar karshu lo baro el lechvodo. Right? His malchus is, what he reigns over is creation, right? Is creation all that glorious? Remember, it says creation is tzikei kedera. It's like what's stuck onto the pots, in a sense that it's the amount of kavod, the amount of glory that God gets from the world, right? Is like that's right, negligible because the world is runs amok with all the evil that's done, all the corruption, right? It's amazing God still wants it anyway. He still wants it anyway. Right? He still wants it anyway. But you got to whisper this because because it's embarrassing. Right? Because this is called his glory. This is called his majesty with all the evil that's going on in the world. That's what I'm saying. That the glory that God gets from this world is like the geschmack you get from what's burnt onto the pot, stuck onto the pot. Right, so that's why we say this quietly year-round, as opposed to the pasuk of Shema Yisrael, which Hashem is one, as in one and only. Now, when God, being the one and only, He is His own glory. Right? So we could proclaim that loud and clear. because God is truly the one and only, and He lacks nothing, and He's perfect. But when the praise of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Onved, the kavod and the Malchus, referring to the Bria, right? The amount of kavod that He gets is so negligible that it's virtually embarrassing, right? So He wants it anyway. So we give it to Him anyway, but we give it to Him with a whisper. Right? Again, because of how the Bria is adulterated with evil. Right? But on Yom Kippur, right, what changed? So, right, so the Gemara says, Has Satan, with the hay. Right? Has Satan is Gematria 364. Right? But there are 365 days in the year. So Gemara says there's one day the Satan doesn't work, Yom Kippur. He's only on the job 364 days a year. Right? So on this day, where the Satan doesn't, he's off for the day. So we're allowed to say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso out loud. Right? And that's also parallel to the individual, right? That's in the cosmos, and that's in the individual also, right? That we, on this day, we're on the level of like angels, because we refrain from food and drink. Right? So this is the reason why we could say, this is the reason that we could say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso out loud. There's two problems that we still need to be ironed out. Right. First and foremost is, wouldn't it be more appropriate to say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso out loud, Motzei Yom Kippur, after you went through a whole day of fasting and tshuva? Right. Yom Kippur goes out, life goes back to normal. You say Baruch Shem Kvod in a whisper. Right. Yom Kippur comes in, and you're coming out of your Suda Mafsekes, stuffed. Right. That's why you say Baruch Shem Kvod out loud. Right. Before you did your tshuva. Right. You say, to feed this logic, because the evil has been annulled, it would have been more befitting to Motzei Yom Kippur. And Motzei Yom Kippur we don't. We daven Marv like we do regularly. Right? But there's another problem, a more fundamental problem. Right? Why aren't the shuls filled with people on Yom Kippur? If there's no Yetzer Hara in the world, everyone should be realizing the errors of their ways, and there should be mass tshuva going on. There's no Yetzer Hara in the world. The Gemara says that Reb Elazar Reb Shimon, handed over to the Romans some troublemakers. He was criticized by Chazal for doing so. But that's what he did. And it came out that he almost felt guilty, but he realized that two of the people that he handed over did it terrible. They gang raped a Nara Morasa on Yom Kippur. That's Lashon Gemara. So he didn't feel so bad. These guys were a bunch of lowlives anyway, right? But my question, how did it happen? Right? Gang raped on Yom Kippur, but it's Yom Kippur. There's no Yetzer Hara on Yom Kippur. How did it happen?
So maybe they were in such a level they abdicated, they gave up their bechira like an addict.
What? Okay, so we have to talk about it.
Such a low level that they already surrendered their bechira in a sense.
Right. So we have to, we need to, so it's something that needs a little bit of explanation. So how, if the sun doesn't work on Yom Kippur, why do people do Averos on Yom Kippur? Right? It could happen. The idea is like this. Let's go back to that medrash, right? That says that Yom Echad, the first day of creation, alludes to Yom Kippur. Right? And yet also alludes that God is the one and only in His world. Right? And we ask the question, right? He wasn't alone in His world. Right? So, what do you mean? All the raw material for heaven and earth was still there. It was created then. Es Hashemayim Vesarts, Rashi says, Rabbos tells him, all the raw material for the entire cosmos was created on day one. So why is it called that God's alone in His world? Right. So here is a unbelievable principle to realize. Now, there is no problem for other things to exist outside of God if all that exists outside of God acknowledges God as the absolute reality. So it's not a contradiction. It's not a contradiction. The problem of others, Hashem echad and ein od milvado, there is none other. None others when people the problem is when it is identified as being an alternative to God. Right? But there could be infinite amount of creations, and that in no way detracts from God's unity. If all those creations acknowledge God as their creator and the only absolute reality, so it's not a contradiction to God's oneness. The stira to Yichud Hashem, right, is when these creations identify separate from God. It says there's God and there's me. Right? So the me, the sense of I, is in contradiction to God being the one and only absolute reality. So now here's an amazing thing. When everything is underwater, as the world was on the first day of creation, there was water everywhere. On the second day, God split the water. And on that second day, when God split the water, it doesn't say kitov. It's the one day in Ma'aser Bereshis where God doesn't say, and he saw it was good, because it wasn't good. Right? Because when there was water everywhere, there was no concept of open space. There was no open space. There's water everywhere. Right? When there's no open space, you're forced to face God. When there's no open space, you are forced. You cannot ever lose sight of God for a second. Because the concept of open space means you could turn towards or away. The concept of open space first comes into existence on the second day of creation. Where there's water everywhere, everything's in the same place. But there's something even deeper to that it was water everywhere. And already the Rishonim talk about trying to explain al derech hapshat, the purifying aspect of water. Mikveh. Right? How does it work? Is there, of course, you say Gzeras HaKosov, but there's a certain reasoning. Right? Water tends to dissolve things. Water dissolves. Right? Leave something underwater long enough, it will dissolve. Even solid matter, it gets eroded. Water, when God had to destroy the world, he flooded it. It wasn't perchance, it was because the world had to lose its form and be refashioned. And that's what water does. It erodes things. So, Vayimach kol hayikum, everything got, it eroded. In erosion, things lose their independent identity. And this is also a very big principle in all the halachas of Tumah and Tara. Sukkot is coming up. So the schach has to be for say that's not makabel Tumah. Right? So you have this problem with these mats that if people sleep on them, right? Now it's a kli. That's makabel Tumah. Right? That's mean that it's not made for any type of use. But an amazing thing, the minute the thing gets an identity, it's makabel tumah. Something pashut, something that is nondescript, that's the call, it's not a kli. It has no identity. It's not makabel tumah. When it gets a shame kli, when it gets an identity of being a vessel in its own right, then it's makabel tumah. Right? So because the root of the word tumah, right? What's the root of the word? It's the first thing I learned from my Rebbe, Moshe Shapiro. First thing he taught me. When I met him in Flatbush, before I learned by him in Eretz. First thing I learned from him. So you know what tumah is? Ask me if I know. Great experience with it, but I can't tell you what it really is. Right? It says, the root of the word is tam, tet mem, which means sealed off. Like tum, if you know what that is. Right, a tum as a tum androgynous. A person whose genitals are sealed up. You don't know if he's male or female. Right, tamun, right? Hidden, right? Mitumtam, head is blocked. There's what? That's right, sealed. The mind is sealed. Atum. It's all like atum, like sealed. It's all the same root. Right? Tumah, something has been sealed off from God. Right? It's in that sense of being separate and sealed off. That's where Tumah sets in. What's Tahara? So he said, so there's a Targum, not the Unclus, another Targum, on the word Sohar, Ta'asel Teva, make a window, Tihara. Tihara. It's an Aramaic word for window.
How do you spell it? With a tet or a tet?
With a tet. Tihara.
Tihara as a
That's
window.
Right? Tahara is to be open. Open. No, there's no blockage between you and God. Tumah is there's blockage. There's a seal. There's something that seals you off, right? Underwater, that individuality that separateness dissolves, and that's why in water there's no lashon yachid for water. Mayim, may. There's no individuality in water. So you find there's no singular form for water in lashon hakodesh.
I just said something. We were taught that one of the things that teaches
What?
that what's a tzura is a function. If you see a piece of wood, it's wood. If you see a chair, it's a chair. So once it gets the tzura, it's the name. It's called by its function. So that's what because you were saying once something is used, like if then it can be makabel tumah. Until it was used, it wasn't designated.
Once that's right.
So therefore, the function is the tzura. So the tzura is what.
Yes, but things could
theoretically.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. The separateness from God is where Tumah sets in. Water erodes that separateness. Water erodes, the tzura, and that's the Rishonim already said it. That's the mechanics. You see, when you go to the mikveh, you have to view yourself that you dissolved there. Right? You went. You're gone. Right? The person that comes out is not the same person that went in. You dissolved down there. Right? And so the whole world was underwater on the first day of creation. Right? So at that point, with the whole world underwater, so the whole world is Lifnei Hashem. Right? Lifnei, before, is Lashon Poneh. Everything turns off because there's no other direction to turn. There's no open space you could turn towards, turn away. That was created on the second day. When God split the waters, he created open space. And that's what it means that on that day the Yetzer Hara was created, and on that day Gehenna was created. All the bad stuff was created on the second day. Even though it doesn't say anything about that in the Pasuk, all it says that God split the water. But that's the point. Once you create open space, that is the potential for all evil. Right? Right? The ability to turn away from God is the shirish. Right? It is the root, right, of all evil.
Let's just mention that it's God's design that there be two good, and it's the source of a fever, that there's fever, and it's the source of
But it's a challenge.
Right, but it could be where
it's only meaningful to turn towards God if you could have turned away. Because not called to turn towards at all. If a statue, he's not facing you. Statue's not facing you because he doesn't have a chance to, doesn't have the option. Of course, that's the point. That's the ability to turn away also makes the turning towards meaningful. But that was what's created on the second day, open space, right? So now, we'll get to time in a second. That time changed at that point also. Nature of time, right? Right? So when the whole world was underwater, it's all lifnei Hashem. So Akash was echad ba'olamo, because not even though there are creations, but they don't identify independent from God. They don't identify in adversity to God, because everything's underwater. Everything's underwater. There isn't even the possibility, because there's nowhere else to turn. Everything is in the same place. Everything's in the same place.
Isn't time created on the fourth day with the sun and the moon?
So that's a very good point. The nature of time also eventually changed.
Because space and time is interrelated.
Excellent. I was just alluding to that. You hopped it immediately. That we're going to show how time also changed. The nature of time changed also from the second day onwards. Because as Mrs. Wheatgrass said, because space and time are related. So since it was raised, let me get straight to it. How do you look at time? How do you look at time? Now we spoke about this once. How do you look at time? Is it like it's it's just a moment, and then a moment, and a moment, right? It's just made strong. It's just a bunch of disjointed moments.
No.
Well, I don't know.
One thing leads
or
to
is it a continuum? Right? It's a conveyor belt. It's a conveyor belt of destiny. The past is not gone. It's just behind you. It's behind you. It still exists, right? The future is not yet to be. There is a destiny. Maybe you could edit it a little bit, make some contribution, but there is a destiny that's coming towards you, right? Now, of course, the simple perception of time is to view it as moment, right? Because you only experience it moment by moment. But that doesn't mean that the other moments don't exist, right? Just like you can't be in two different places at the same time, you can't be in two different times at the same time, right? It's a kal v'chomer, right? If you can't be in two different places at the same time, you certainly can't be in two different times at the same time. So but it doesn't mean that the past doesn't exist, doesn't mean the future doesn't exist. But there's, just like in space, there's the concept of my turf as opposed to God turf, right? There's also in time the mistake of thinking, right, I'm on my own time. Or what's more common, the bigger pitfall, the heat of the moment. We call it the heat of the moment. If a person would be mindful, right, that there's no such thing as the moment, right? Everything is connected to that. Imagine the type of responsibility you'd be walking around with in your head. There's no moment, right? There's no moment. Everything you do is connected, is offsetting the past. Everything you do is shaping destiny that's coming. You live with that type of concept, you live with a more sense of a mission. It's very interesting. Chazal talk about Rasha Sha'asha'a Misachekeslo. The moment played for him. Rishoyim, their hatzlacha is only for the moment. It's not for eternity. But they also, just like they take advantage of the idea of the perception, seemingly of separate space, they also take advantage of the perception that the moment, without looking towards destiny, not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future. And it's for the moment. Right? So when
instant gratification.
Yes, thinking about the moment, not thinking about tomorrow, not thinking about yesterday, not ma'ayin basal ana taholech, as Chazal said, da ma'ayin basal ana taholech. They think moments. Yeah, without any cheshbon of the tomorrow or the yesterday, right? But that's an illusion, right? So now you take a look that in this illusion of separate space and this illusion of the concept of the moment, right, is where evil exists. That's where all evil exists, right? And I'll prove it to you because it's an amazing thing that we learned in Derech Hashem. Evil has no composition to it, no mass, right? You can't put evil on a scale; it won't weigh anything. All right. Poverty. Now you could put your money on a scale, right? It has mass, right? The good is, right? Poverty. You can't put poverty on a scale. You can't weigh it. It has no mass to it, right? All existence, that is good, right? Is what is. Evil is what there isn't. We'll call it lack thereof. But a lack thereof is not something which is an active force. Any type of evil you could think of is just a form of, it's not a type of anti-existence. It's not a type of anti-matter. It's just, it's a lack of matter, not anti-matter. Right? Poverty is just a lack of wealth. And sickness is a lack of health. And death is a lack of life. You go echad le'echad, right? It doesn't, even as painful as it is, it doesn't have mahut to it, right? But here's the amazing thing, right? There are enough resources in God's world, right, to fill all needs, right? The problem is that, the need and the supplement for that need are not hooked up together. That's the problem. The problem, there is really enough food in the world to feed everybody. There is. There is enough money in the world to support everybody. There is. Right? Things are not hooked up. This guy who has the need and this guy who has the excess, they're not in touch. So God guides us and then instructs us to give charity, right? If we'd really be living by the instructions of the Torah, the world would be a much better place, right? For every problem there is a solution. The real problem is that the problem and the solution are not hooked up together. Right? When we talk about, there's a very simple physics to the idea that we say that one day the world will be perfect. It's very simple, right? Because we're waiting for all the pieces just to fall into place. That's all. It's not the big miracle people think it is. It's simple physics, right? There is a solution. Right? There is a supplement for every lack. There is. It's been created already. It just hasn't hooked up yet. The problem and the solution just haven't come together. That's the problem. Tikkun is all about just pulling the pieces together. Tohu, and again, the Ramchal says this in the Dasvos. Tohu is when everyone just wants to be at the head. They're not interested in supplementation. But we can supplement for each other. We can complement each other and do away with all what's wrong with the world. Right? But we're not interested. You're not interested. You're interested in just being at the head. Right? So since I was interested in being at the head and not playing his role, that's why the world is in this jumbled state where the problems and the solutions are not pulled together. But by the end of time, all the pieces will fall into place. And if there are still pieces that need to come into the universe, by that time they'll be here. Right? So, but this concept, right, that you have the problem is here and the solution is there. That's all rooted in open space. Open space. So therefore, you could have on this side of the plane is the problem, on the other side of the plane is the solution, and they're not hooked up because there's dead space in between. Dead space in between. There's the time barrier. Time's not right yet. The time barrier that we're talking about. The perception that the world goes in moments. There's the time barrier. There's a space barrier. Imagine if you could do away with all open space and all open time. That past, present, and future could exist at the same time. And all open space would be closed. World would be perfect. So now, you have to understand, in the time of Olam Haba, right, you don't live moment by moment Olam Haba. In Nitzchias, the Ramchal writes this in Yad Yibam, past, present, and future all exist at the same time. In the physicality, we experience time moment by moment. That's how we experience it. So in our personal experience, the past is not connected to the present, which is not connected to the future. In the future world, all time will be there at the same time. And that's why it's a perfect world. Nothing's missing.
Can I ask something?
Right? Yes.
When it says in the Gemara that says that one of the Roman women asked the time, "What does Hashem do all day?" And it's Mizavik Zevugin.
Yes.
So
that's correct. Absolutely.
So Tikkun and Mizavik Zevugin, it's the same thing.
That's absolutely. That's our whole avoda is to pull the pieces together. That's what Tikkun is rooted in. So but in that empty space that was created on the second day, right? That empty space, in it itself is an illusion. It doesn't really exist. As the Gemara says in Chagiga, that when God parted the waters, he only created the illusion that they parted. Really, the waters we're underwater right now. You just can't see it. referring to that the illusion of empty space, just an illusion, right? God is everywhere. There's no two options. There's no option on the right side and the option on the left side. One option. There's only God alone. Right? We have the perception, right? That there are these options. Now in this perception gives room for, it's just the beginning, where so many other mistaken perceptions could fall into that room. If you wanted to look at the greatest world shapers, it's all make-believe. All right? There's the entertainment industry moves millions, right? And shapes the fashion and shapes the way people talk, and shapes, the whole culture. That's the word I was looking for. Which moves a lot of money and causes people a great deal of stress, because what you were just wearing is now out of style because some movie came out and everyone's wearing that. It causes, and it's all make-believe, right? Wait, you know how many millions of people died because of make-believe? The biggest make-believe is anti-Semitism. It's the biggest lie there ever was, right? So aside from Jews get killed, World War II, right? It was all because one Meshugana, the Jews are to blame for everything, and we're going to be a master race and a Reich that's going to live for 1,000 years, right? And how many people died? Like 20 million people died in World War II because one guy, one Meshugana, right, riled up everybody. Right? Fiction is very much a shaper of, every ism that there ever was, just an idea. Communism, whatever, any ism that there ever was just an idea that had no lohaya v'lo nivra, right? People got excited about it. And it moved a tremendous amount of money, and it moved a tremendous amount of lives. Right? And it's a davar shelo haya v'lo nivra. Mickey Mouse. Right? He's touched so many lives, right? World over, even in the Far East, and he makes a lot of money. And, he makes me feel small by comparison. Who am I next to me? I've been outdone by a mouse that doesn't even exist, right? Right? That's an amazing thing, right? That ideas shalohayu v'lo nivru have a tremendous effect on reality, right? Much more than true ideas. Seemingly, right? And that was all, by this open space that perception of open space gave room for even fiction to invade and infect reality. This open space, this rakia b'toch hamayim. It was just the beginning. It was just the beginning of all the bad. It was open space. That perception of open space is the openness that even fiction can infiltrate reality, right? And really move things around radically, to the point that you think because it had such a devastating effect, there must be something to it, when there isn't anything to it. Right? It's all in the mind. But perception is reality. That's the problem. So, when we the Eitzah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us to get out of this box was Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is a day that breaks out of normal space-time as we know it. Indeed, Al Yovo B'chol Eisel HaKodesh. You can never enter the Kodesh Kodashim literally, but Yom Kippur is not part of the regular space-time continuum. It's not part of the B'chol Eis. It's not regular time. It's not regular time. Right? When you go into the Kodesh HaKodashim, besides the fact that you're faced, you're Lifnei Hashem in the most literal sense, but you know what else is in the Kodesh HaKodashim? The Even Shasiyah. Now, the Even Shasiyah, the foundation stone, right, is the original point where all reality branched out from. It's the shorish of all reality. Because I was like, Even Shasiyah Shemisham Hu Shasa Olam. Right? You get back to the very root of where space is. Right? You get outside, you get out of the box. You get back to the very root of space. And then you realize all space is an illusion. How so? Because Chazal tell us, Davar zeh misaras biyadenu biyad avosenu. we have a tradition. Ha'aron eino min amida. The aron could have not taken up space, because when you calculate the aron, which the square amida was, plus the wingspan of the kruvim, and then you measure the kodesh kodeshim, it can never fit. Can never fit.
I thought it was the poles that were too.
Whatever. All right, that's aron eino min amida. Right? There's no way mathematically that the aron could fit into the kodesh kodeshim. Just wouldn't fit. Mathematically, it wouldn't work out. That means the kodesh kodeshim was bigger on the inside than on the outside. Right? When you come to that, you realize that when you face with that reality, you realize that space as we know it is just an illusion, right? Because it's just mathematically, spatially couldn't work out, right? All right. And when the kodesh, when Aaron HaKohen went into the kodesh kodeshim, lifnei Hashem, right? It's actually an act on behalf of all Am Yisrael, leaving time and space as we know it. All right. What happened in Yom Kippur? Omdim tzfufim u'mishtachavim revachim. They stood. They stood like sardines. When they bowed, wide open space. Right? Well, you're coming to understand that when you bow to God, He's the makom. He's the real space. I don't have my own space. He's the space. Now, when you come to that type of clarity, and that's why b'chol eis, you break out of time as we know it. You break out of the moments. You break out of space as we know it. You go into that place where aron eino min amida, the laws of spatial relationships is broken, right? And all Am Yisrael experience that even outside. Omdim tzfufim mishtachim revachim, right? So what happens, when you reach that level, that the illusion of separate time and space is broken. Right, so at that time, right, evil loses its foothold on reality. It's got no more room to exist because evil latches onto the illusion of open space. That it's possible not to be lifnei Hashem, possible to turn away. It's possible just to live for the moment. Right, when those laws are broken, right, so evil loses its foothold on reality. So now what happens? So if year-round, everything that we know is a composite of good and evil, right? Including our own persona, unfortunately. You have your sane thoughts, you have your insane thoughts, and they'll make up what's called your personality, right? Right? So what happens when all the gaps are closed? Fission, right? Fission. Oh, first, fission, right? Fission, like as in nuclear fission. Fission.
Oh, fission.
Good and evil must separate. They cannot no longer be in the same place at the same time because evil lost its foothold. And that's the secret of the Shnei Seirim. Shnei Seirim, Shavim, B'Koima, Ubemare, they look the same. They have to be the same age, same height, look identical. Shavim b'kol mara, that represents, you and reality. Am I my good side? Am I my bad side? No, everyone's like, everyone's a little bit schizo. Right? Right.
What word did you say before? Fusion?
Fission.
How do you spell?
Fission.
Oh, fission. Oh, okay.
Opposite of fusion.
Okay.
Fission. Fission takes place. Right. The thing, we would have identified two things as equally as real. We would have identified two things as being equally real. Right? Shavim b'komo b'mara, you think the good and evil are equally as real. Your good side, your bad side are equally as real. At this point, and seemingly everything is a composite of both of them together. And on Yom Kippur, there's fission takes place. Since the evil lost its foothold on reality, right? So it has to split off from reality because the open space has been closed, right? The open space has been closed, so it has to figure out. That's what it means that the Shnei Seirim, right? The two goats now are being separated. Echad la'Hashem, echad la'azazel, and this can't be done by choice. This can't be done by choice because Bechira has to see good and evil as equal options and choose good over evil. This is going above Bechira. That's why it has to be begoiro. It has to be done by lots, right? Because free will has to see good and evil as two plausible options and choose good over evil. We are going beyond that. We're going past that, right? We're reaching the clarity that evil doesn't exist. Good is what is. Good is what is. Evil is what isn't, right? So that's above, because you can't choose this one la Hashem, this one la Azazel, because you're going above that. You're going past that. You're going past that mentality. So it has to be al pi agoro. I'm sorry.
Doesn't behavior require time? It requires time.
It requires time. It requires space. The option to the right, the option to the left, and you turn to the right. Right. This is going above that because we just closed the space between right and left. So evil's just pushed out of reality. Right?
And that's
it's about
when you drink.
Okay, of course. Yeah.
When
right.
you can't tell who's
right.
The separation of the first day and the separation of the second day are radically opposite. The separation of the first day is the separation that you have because of no space. And the separation of the second day is perceived separation.
Right.
That creates space.
Right.
And
right. So we're going back to the first day. Yom Kippur is to go back to the first day. There's water everywhere. So just like Koshua Yochid Ba'olamo, right? He was the only one in the world, right? And we have that perception of Yom Kippur. He's the only one reality. And that's the purified, that is what makes the purity of Yom Kippur. Lifnei Hashem Titaro. It's not the very last Mishnah in Maseches Yuma, which is the Masechta on Yom Kippur. Rabbi Akiva said, Ashrechem Yisrael, Lifnei mi atar mi metar eschem vichem shvashamayim. Before who you become tar? Who purifies you? God. The act of purification is to turn towards God. That is purity. That's mikveh Yisrael Shem, ma mikveh taris hatmeim, afakarshul mitaris Yisrael. That's what happens in Yom Kippur, right? It is, the act of purification is being lifnei Hashem Titro. When you realize you face God and there are no two options, evil is not an option. All those wrong things that I did are not as real as the good things that I do, right? And that recognition is the greatest dislodging of them, right? And so at that moment, the evil fissions off from the good. And that's the separation of the Shnei Seirim, right? And it's done al pi agoro because it's above where free will reaches, because free will is to contend, with the open space. So we're getting past that, right? So now this is the amazing thing, right? There's justice in the world, and even on Yom Kippur there's justice. There's justice, right? The Rebbe doesn't do anything that to anybody that no one deserves, even the Satan. Even the Sultan, right? The Sultan owns stocks in Am Yisrael. Right? He owns stocks every time you do a chet, right? So even though there's the sad thing that even though the evil is not real, but it infiltrates reality. We say false ideas cause a lot of people to do a lot of things and spend a lot of money and kill a lot of people, right? That's all indicative that every time an evil thought is thunk, let alone an evil deed is done, the Sitra Achra that doesn't really exist gets stocks in reality. Non-reality gets stocks in reality, right? It starts owning stocks, right? He's got to be paid. You got to buy him out. There's justice in the world, right? The Rebbe Shalom is bedin with everybody, even with the Sitra Achra. Right? Fair is fair. Right? He owns stock in us. That's it. So the Rebbe says a very simple cheshbon. Well, what did you put in? What did you invest in reality? You invested the Averis. That's your investment. You cause people to sin. That's your investment in reality. Take the Averis back. You're returning your investment. That's what the Sir Lazazo represents. Returning the investment. That Kol Avonos Tam. Kol Avonos Tam. Avonos Tam. All the Avonos that there were in the pure and perfect world. That got tainted, we send them all to Eretz Gzeira. So we ask, it's a korban to the son. The son is, getting his investment back. That's what he owns. He cannot be deprived of his investment. But here's the thing: you send the sins back to oblivion. And that azazel, represents X reality, outside of reality. That's that cliff is a representation that when you push that seir out, it's been pushed off reality. Right? That the ra has been truly been removed, right, from reality. Then and what he owns, his stocks in reality, that's what's been removed, and that's what the Zohar means. The mincha to Esav was the seir la'azazel, right? No, Esav had a taina, right? Yaakov Avinu's not such a tzaddik. Maybe he's not so much better than I am. Everyone knows he also had the schus of Kibbur Av during all the years that Yaakov Avinu was away. Right? So Yaakov Avinu sends him the mincha. Right? And so the Zohar says he sent him the mincha with the same kavanas that the coin, that the man threw the seer la'azazel off the cliff. What's the connection? Buyout. Right? Esav has his claims. Well, listen, you have your claims. Here's payment. Fair and square. Fair and square. Now, of course, you can't pay the son if not mandated by the Bible, because that would be avodah zarah, would be called Satan worship. But the Torah mandated once a year, because on this year, as it were, his investment is being returned to him. But the amazing irony is that if the Sitra Achra doesn't really exist, the Sitra Achra infiltrates existence. Fantasy infiltrates reality, right? When you return it back to the realm of fantasy, you mean you've taken it out of existence and made it ex-existence. So he got, this is yours, take what's yours, right? And with that, and that is actually the Gemara Tikkun of taking it out of reality. You've returned the falseness back to oblivion. An act of giving him back his investment, that's actually how you take it out of reality, right? And the falseness that has invaded reality has been removed and returned to the realms of oblivion.
Would that explain how a person, if they do tshuva mi'ava, it's
yes.
Well, not only as if they didn't sin, but because they've returned
right.
to.
So you have to understand, right? Right. So you have to understand that that Yom Kippur is breaks the rules of time and space. So on Yom Kippur, we could say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso out loud, because on this day, it's like being back underwater. There's no other place to face. You don't face anything other than God. So on this day, the Bria is truly God's glorious majesty. So you could say it out loud and proud, because on this day, there's no possibility of anyone facing anywhere else. But here's the problem, right? The problem is that's true in God's world. That's all true in God's world, right? If a person would be spiritually perceptive, he could see all these ideas that we're saying, that on Yom Kippur, is a taste of the world of the future. And that's what the Rambam says, who kates mechil, it's like the edge of forgiveness. Edge, i.e., we broke out of the box, right? It's within the box of the 6,000 years. We always talk about Kates Hayamim, right? Edge of days, right? Evil is only true from here to here. When you break out of that box, it doesn't exist anymore. Right? Yom Kippur is that edge. The Rambam calls it Kates. Kates Mechila V'Slicha. Right? It's the edge of forgiveness.
The space-time singularity.
Yes. Yeah. That's like Yom Kippur is living over the edge. It's reminiscent of Kates Hayomim, and it's also reminiscent of another pasuk, Kates Sam Lachoshech. Darkness has an edge to it. Yom Kippur is over the edge. It's over that edge. It's not living on the edge. It's over the edge.
So
it's over the edge. So that's why when Yom Kippur goes out, even though we went through a whole day of fasting and prayer, we can't say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso out loud anymore, because the world reverted back to what it was. Right? Yom Kippur is a miracle. Right? You just have to latch onto it, be in step with the day. Right? You got to be in step with the day. Right? And that's what the Rambam opens up, says, Yom Kippur's man tshuva lakol. It's a time of tshuva. Time itself, everything's going back to God. Reality itself is going back to God. V'ukates mechil v'slicha, so on. It's an edge of forgiveness. Edge meaning you get out of the box. You get out of the box that is the perceived reality. And therefore, that's why one is chayv to do tshuva. Right? Be in step with the day. Right? You got to be in step with the day, right? If a person would live in God's reality and be spiritually perceptive, he would see that's exactly what's happening. Evil doesn't exist on this day. But the problem is perception is reality. That's the problem, right? God's world is clean on this day. The sun doesn't work on this day. The sun, Gematria 364, this is the day of 3. And by the way, this relates back to the 365th day is Yom Kippur. And that's when the solar cycle is complete. And that's when Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are now back in the same year. We spoke about this Rosh Hashanah. This is the day of everything comes together. This is when the solar cycle catches up to the lunar cycle, right? This is the day, the grand day of the closure, reconciliation, which leaves no foothold for evil, right? But what happens if you can't change your mentality, right? You, in your head, you're relating to Yom Kippur like, Tuesday, right? Right? What is that? Right? So that's the problem. God took the Yetzer out of the world. You can invite him back in to your own personal reality. You can invite him back in. He gets paid overtime when you do that, right? So that's what it means, right? You can invite him back in, your own headspace. You can invite him back into your own headspace. Right? Right, because even though God, took out of the cosmos the illusion of separate space, but if you still want to, think that way and look at life that way, you can still have a Yetzer Hara also on Yom Kippur, and that's how it happened. That's how the Gemara says a girl was gang raped on Yom Kippur. Right, the people that Elazar and Rav Shimon handed over. Right? That's why the shuls aren't packed on Yom Kippur. Right? Because even though God took the Yetzer Hara out of the world, right, but you're in charge of your own personal universe. That's the problem. Right? The biggest avoda of Yom Kippur is to really change your mentality. You have to really, to be in step with the day. And if you're in step with the day, then your tshuva is accepted. Because even this mentality alone is so fundamental in tshuva, to realize that the good is what is, and no matter how much bad I did, it's not as real as the good that I did. The good is eternal. The good is what is. The bad is what isn't. And since it as much as it may have been what I did with most of my life, even with one thought, it could be washed away because it's not real, the way the good deeds that I did are. But you got to believe that. And so the Ikar Avod of Yom Kippur, to be in step with the tremendous powers of this day, right? Where space and time are converging, right? And it's a day of eternity. It's a day where past, present, future are all connected. It's a day when all space, all dead space has been closed, and there's only Lifnei Hashem Titara. Right? Right? You got to believe that. If you don't believe it, it's not going to work. Right? Because in your own personal headspace, you're inviting the Yetzer Hara back in. If in your own personal headspace you're going to give foothold for the evil, what's it going to do?
Hashem is really giving us such a gift.
Yes.
Right, and our part is, you have to believe in it. You gotta believe in it. Right? It's if you're going to relate to Yom Kippur like you relate to any other day of the week, it's not going to have the same effect on you because of you gave room to the Yetzer Hara on that day. God took it out of His world, right? But you have to be in step with that. And it's a very important point. The Rambam, one of the mysteries is why the Rambam put Hilchos Tshuva in Sefer Hamada, in the book of faith. All the things we have to believe in, are in the Sefer Hamada, right? And he put Hilchos Tshuva there. So in the Moreh Nevuchim, which he wrote at the end of his life, he answered that. I put Tshuva in Sefer Hamada because you got to believe in Tshuva. It's a belief. You have to believe it really works. You have to believe in it just as much as you have to believe in God. So right, so I put it there. You have to believe that tshuva really works. You have to believe that the evil, all the evil that there is, that you did, or that there is in the world, could easily be erased from reality. You really have to believe that. People don't get out of sin because they don't really believe that they can. Right? People don't break their habits because they don't believe that they can. Right? Right? People don't change because they look at today with yesterday's eyes. Right? On Yom Kippur, the Rebbe Shalom pushes the world a quantum leap forward, gives it a taste of the future. So really, after Yom Kippur, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world. But it only works for you if you believe in it. Right? If you're in step with it. And the biggest enemy is your mentality and your lack of faith and lack of self-confidence. That this is all real and it's all possible. The Rebbe Shalom, his hand is extended on this day, but you have to take it. Right? You have to take it by believing in the power of tshuva, believing in the power of Yom Kippur. Atzmo sheyom Kippur mechaper lashavim, the Ram says. It clears away, but it clears away only for those who do tshuva. Right? And do tshuva is, really the recognition, right, that good is what is and evil is just an illusion. With that clarity, it's very easy to do tshuva. It's very easy to just break loose. The biggest way to break away from the boogeyman, right? You come to recognition he doesn't really exist. That's the mahus of tshuva. And on this day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps you that the cosmos supports this way of thinking. But you have to adopt this way of thinking. And that's the hardest part. And to the extent that you adopt this way of thinking, that, evil is an illusion and the good is what is, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one and only reality, and what he prescribed in the Torah is the one and only real option. The other options are illusions. They are not real alternatives. To the extent that you actually, increase that understanding of Yom Kippur, that is what you will take with you after Yom Kippur. What God does for us in Yom Kippur, he takes away immediately after Yom Kippur. For one day, he closes all the gaps, and the doors are wide open, right? And the dead space is closed, right? And he takes that away immediately after the last, Hashem Elokim. It's over. It's a gift for 24 hours. What you will take with you from Yom Kippur is to the extent that you internalize that the good is emes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is emes, right? And the world is his glorious majesty, and all these things that we're ashamed of and we're embarrassed of, right, are all just illusion. That is the clarity that you'll take with you, that you should have, Be'ezer Hashem, a much better year after Yom Kippur.